So, what are the factors to consider when mechanizing a farm? Not all farmers can use all the implements which we have mentioned. These are some of the factors we need to consider when we would like to mechanize a farm. Number one, we should look into consideration in terms of size of the farm land. Most of the times, if we are mechanizing a farm, at least it can be economical if we are using it on large farms. So at least most of the farm machineries which we have mentioned above, more especially tractor-drawn implements, those tractor-drawn machineries, those ones at least they should be used on large by large-scale farmers. So large farms, it will be very, very economical if we use those machines on large farms. Just imagine you are just having a land just maybe few square meters. Then you are hiring a tractor-drawn plow so that it should till that land, that small land. Then you hire a tractor-drawn ridger to till on that small piece of land. Then you hire a tractor-drawn seeder or planter just to plant on that small land, so on and so forth. If you can calculate how much you are going to spend on that small piece of land, it will be much more higher than what you are going to get from that land. So we're saying that mechanization is economical on large farms or large-scale farmers. Apart from that, we should take into consideration availability of capital. Frankly speaking, most of the farm machines, they are very, very expensive. Therefore, it requires sufficient capital to buy, install, maintain, or just hire those machines. And not forgetting, when it comes to maintaining their spare parts, they're also expensive. So we will need at least sufficient funds or sufficient capital to buy them, to install, to maintain those machines. So at least if you are capable to buy those machines, that's fair enough. But if you are not capable, don't dare. Then we should also take into consideration topography of the land. Most of the times, mechanization is easier on flat lands. Mechanization is very, very easy on flat land. We cannot use most of the farm machineries on hilly areas or the lands which are sloping. It will be difficult for you to operate on those slopy or steep lands. So we're saying that you have to consider on the topography of the land. If it is flat, you can mechanize. Then accessibility of the land. You make sure that the land should be accessible for ease of movement of machines. Those machines, in order for them to reach your land, you make sure that it is possible for those machines to move from where they are so that they can reach the farm. But if there are no roads, or maybe your land is just surrounded with other farms, it will be difficult for you to reach your farm. So you make sure that the land should be accessible for ease of movement of machines. We cannot run away from technical know-how as another factor to consider when mechanizing a farm. At least mechanization requires skills. and qualified personnel to operate most machines. We talk of maintenance, we talk of repairing those machines. You need artist skills as well as qualified personnel. Even yourself as a farmer, at least you should have some knowledge about those machines. Otherwise, those will be helping you in operating the machines. They may impose in the things which are not even supposed to be used. So it is very, very important, at least when you are mechanizing a farm, there is a need of some skills as well as even qualified personnel so that they can operate those machines. Apart from that, value of the crop is also another factor we need to consider. At least high valued crops can be mechanized since they are able to recover cost of mechanization. As I've already mentioned earlier on, that machines, those farm machines, most of them, they are very, very expensive. So you cannot use those expensive machines to do some of the activities in Amaretha's field, Bonongwe. We know that those type of vegetables, they are very, very cheap when it comes to selling them. So you have, of course, you may have a huge field, but as long as you are going to plant, let's say, amarethas, then you hire a machine to clear the land, you hire the machine to till the land or to make some beds, even to plant. Definitely you may not be able to recover the cost of mechanization. So you make sure that if you are having valued, you are going to plant or you are going to grow valued crops, you can mechanize, bearing in mind that once you sell your crop, which is of high value, you're going to recover the cost of mechanization. Apart from that, we can also consider market demand. At least the crops planted under mechanization should be of high demand. Just imagine you have mechanized the crop of which at the market there is no market of that crop. Definitely, it means you may not have uh, you may not recover the cost of mechanization. At least you make sure that you plant the crops which are of high demand. You are sure that they are going to be sold. Apart from that, it will depend on farmers' attitude. At least you can only mechanize the farm if and only if you have a positive attitude towards farm mechanization. It is very, very impossible for farmers who have negative attitude toward mechanization to to mechanize the farm. So we're saying that you should have a positive attitude towards mechanization. Then we have another factor to consider, which is improved infrastructure and social amenities. Mechanization most of the times requires well-distributed road network, water supply, and well-structured market system channels for various products. If there is no road network, how will those machines maneuver from one place to another? If you are preferring you have less water supply, most of the times you have farm machineries, definitely you may even do irrigation system. So if you are running out of water or there is no water supply, it will be difficult for you to use some of the machines which are there to supply water. But from that, a well-structured market system, very, very important. Apart from that, it will depend on availability of fuels and oil. Those machines, in order for them to be used, you need oils, you need fuels for proper operations and maintenance of them. You remember at one point in time here in Malawi, we ran out of fuel. It means that time definitely mechanization was impossible. So mechanization can be impossible in countries where they run out of fuel, just because those machines uh, they cannot be used, or they cannot be used if there is no fuel. Then availability of labor is also another factor we can consider. It is very, very important that there is sufficient labor on the farm to perfect the work done by the machines. Those machines definitely, as I've already mentioned, you need qualified personnel to operate them. So if they are not there, it will be impossible to use those machines. So it will depend on the availability of qualified personnel. Apart from that, it will depend on land tenure system. Some land tenure system will prevent combining the farms to create bigger farm holding. We have mentioned earlier that in order for you to mechanize a farm, you make sure that at least you are mechanizing a farm which is huge on large farms. And here in Malawi, with this high population increase, we are running short of land. Most of the times, we cultivate on small piece of land. The families cultivate on small pieces of land. But still more, we can mechanize a farm as long as you can combine those small farms and create a bigger farm or holding, so that each and every farmer may contribute on the cost of the machine if you hired. But there are some land tenure system which will prevent doing so. So it will depend on the land tenure system. Apart from that, another factor is lack of credit facilities. Remember, farm mechanization requires large capital. Hence, there will be need for credit facilities. So, if in an area there is lack of credit facilities, it will be very impossible to do farm mechanization. Then, farming practices. Some of the farming practices you may not require to use farm machineries, just because it may limit the size and efficiency of farm machinery to be used on the farm. So some of the farming practices, there will be no need for you to use farm machineries. For example, in a broadcasted, in the field where you used broadcasting method of sowing, it will be difficult for you to use a machine when it comes to weeding. So we're saying that it will depend on farming practices you have used. And lastly, land for animal feeds. If you are going to use ox-drawn implements, make sure that you have sufficient land for pasture production. Just because those oxen or those animals, you need to feed them enough so that they should enough energy when they are operating onto the farm. So make sure that you have sufficient land for pasture production. If not, do not use animal drawn implements. Why are we discussing on farm mechanization? There are so many benefits if we mechanize a farm. Number one, saves time, as operations are done fast and at the right time, hence reduce drudgery. So we're saying that farm mechanization saves time just because operations are done fast and at the right time. And also, just because operations are done fast, therefore, another advantage can be farm mechanization releases farmers time for other tasks. Instead of the whole 3 months, a farmer to be doing several operations into the farm, maybe only 1 month can be used for the farmer to be doing those operations in the farm. The other 2 months, the farmer will be free to do other activities. Apart from that, farm mechanization can make difficult operations, or difficult operations can be done which otherwise could be impossible. So when there is a machine, difficult operations or difficult tasks can be done, which could otherwise not be possible if you are using human labor. It also increases crop quality, especially during harvesting and processing. If you do processing or harvesting using machine, you may end up having high quality produce, high quality crop produce. Apart from that, compensate peak labor periods. There is a certain period whereby the labor is at peak. The labor is at peak, more especially the time of land preparation. The time of land preparation, most of the times the labor is at peak. Almost each and every farmer would like to do land preparation. That moment, we say that the labor is at peak. So, if you are using farm machineries, at least that will compensate that peak labor period. And also, farm mechanization may substitute other expensive farm labor. For example, in terms of transportation, if we can use an ox cart, it might be very, very cheap rather than if you use people to carry on their head. So, may substitute expensive farm labor. And also, operations are done more efficiently. Another advantage increases yield. Since farm mechanization, we're saying that we can use on a large farm. If you can take care of that large farm, we expect high yield. Of course, it's not always that the larger the farm, the higher the yield, or the smaller the farm, the lower the yield. It's not always the case. But most of the times, if you cultivate a large piece of land and you take care of that large piece of land as recommended, we expect high yield. So, farm mechanization increases yield. And lastly, farmers benefit from economies of scale by large-scale production, since it permits expansion of farm to cultivate. Even though farm mechanization have several advantages or benefits, but it also has some limitations. So some of the disadvantages or limitations of farm mechanization are as follows. Number one, it creates unemployment. For example, unskilled labor may not be required if you are mechanizing a farm. You only need skilled labor. Therefore, people will be mitigating to cities and towns in search of employment or work. So, let's say in a farm, if at all you use human labor, in a farm where you may employ 10 people to do some of the operations in the farm, you may only employ one qualified personnel. So in that case, we're saying that it creates unemployment. Apart from that, quality of work may be compromised due to speed of operation. Farm mechanization, as already mentioned, as an advantage, it is very, very fast. But that fastness now may compromise in terms of quality of work. And also, capital and operating costs are very, very high, making it very, very expensive. So, in short, farm mechanization, very expensive. It requires a high capital. Apart from that, foreign currency is lost in importing spare parts. Most of the times, these machines, the farm machineries, you need some spare parts, or even those machines themselves. In order for you to buy those machines, definitely you are going to buy them from outside the country. And if we talk of spare parts, they will also be coming from outside the country. So in that case, we're saying that foreign currency is lost. The foreign currency is lost. And it requires skills and qualified personnel to operate most farm machineries who require high wages. So this makes even worse. It is really expensive. In order for you to hire skilled and qualified personnel, you are already on the higher side in terms of cost or wages. Can also lead to soil compaction, hence soil degradation. Remember, we mentioned one of the heaviest machine which can also be used under tractor drawn implement. We mentioned of subsoiler. This machine is very, very heavy. It's very, very heavy. So because of that, it can lead to soil compaction and can cause soil degradation. Another limitation can be limits on the choice of crops to grow. Remember, farm mechanization, only valued crops must be used so that you are 100% sure that the costs of the machines or the operations using machine will be back. So we are saying that limits on the choice of crops to grow. Only valued crops should be grown under farm mechanization. Should be grown under farm mechanization. And also requires large land. Therefore, small land holdings make mechanization uneconomical. So you cannot use on small land holdings. So that's another limitation. Let's now look on another item, which is maintenance of various farm implements. It is important to service farm implements regularly because at least you make sure that the machines should last long. And also properly maintained machines works better and is safer to work with. And also maintenance of machines is also very, very important because those machines are too expensive for farmers to replace them frequently. So once you buy, you make sure that you do maintenance regularly. So on the table here, it is showing some implements which can be used on the farm and methods of maintenance. For example, a hoe. You make sure that you check the handle and blade is in good condition. And make sure that it is sharpened if blunt. And it is important to scrape soil off the blade and also make sure that you apply some waste oil on the blade and store in a dry place. Debanger, replace, sharpen, and oil the blade if the handle is broken, blunt, or dry. Apart from that, clean the banger after use. The wheelbarrow, you grease the wheel axle to reduce wear and tear. And it is important to paint the wheelbarrow to prevent it from rusting. The sprayer, make sure that you clean and dismantle the nozzle and the tank thoroughly soon after use with clean water to prevent corrosion by chemicals. And painting the knapsack sprayer during the off-season is also essential. The ox plow and the ridger, you grease the axles, brakes, and the hitch regularly. Tighten the loose bolt and nuts before use. Set the plow and ridger correctly. You should not drag the plow and ridger when transporting. Replace worn-out parts such as landslide and shear. The ox cart, you grease the wheel, bearing and nuts, tighten loose bolts and nuts, replace worn-out parts. Make sure that you check the tires if they are in correct pressure, and do not overload the ox cart to prevent it from overturning. Make sure you paint the ox cart and store it in a shade to prevent rusting. The harrows, make sure that you tighten all bolts, U-bolts and nuts, replace worn-out parts, grease the bearings and the harrow when not in use to prevent it from rusting. Check that the teeth are securely placed and sharpen blunt ends or the points or the points. And also painting is also necessary to prevent it from rusting. The disc plow, tighten the bolts and nuts, grease the bearing and paint the beams, replace worn-out discs and the scrapers. Make sure that you clean and sharpen the discs and check and adjust the scraper. Moldboard plow, make sure that you sharpen the shear if blunt, and also you tighten the bolts and nuts. Grease the moldboard, shear, and lancet to prevent it from rusting. Clean and adjust the discs as per recommended. Repair worn-out parts and also paint the beam. So, some safety measures when using farm machineries should be observed, such as you should read operations manual that accompanies implements and machines before using them, so that at least you use them as expected. And also do not wear loose clothes when operating the machines. Otherwise, some accidents may be inevitable. Do not leave the machines running unattended. Make sure that there is a qualified personnel near that running machine. And wear protective clothes such as overalls, masks, gloves, boots, more especially during spraying. It is not necessary to smoke, drink, or eat when spraying. Otherwise, you may consume together with some chemicals. Avoid spraying against the wind to prevent you being splashed with the chemicals. Do not touch the engine when it is hot or running. Another safety measure, make sure that you check the steering and brakes of the tractor so that they do not fail while in operation. Also, store the chemicals in safe place and always away from children. Clean spraying machine thoroughly. Do not use the machine when you are tired to avoid accidents. Do not remove any part of machine when it is running. Some of the people, just because maybe they are very experienced, they tend to remove some of the parts of the machine while the machine is running. So it is very dangerous. Do not remove any part of machine when it is running. When carrying implements, ensure that sharp blades face downwards. So that makes the end of our topic on farm mechanization. Here we are having a revision exercise here. Make sure that you write this revision exercise and forward your responses to the number below. It is on WhatsApp, or if possible you can use the email address down there. So our next topic we are going to discuss is on farm power. It is on farm power. And down here, these are some of the agriculture topics which are on DVD for agriculture book 4. Till then, goodbye.
Yanu kufunafuna mapunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani. Ajala kalime, ajala kuchwe manyazi, ajala katende yanti, ndipo anthu ophunzira wandu wotumanso kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira, skulu akuyikirani apa mukhala otumidwa.